next panelist is Tagreed Jaber. Tagreed is Regional Director of Penal Reform International, based in their office in Amman in Jordan. She's running penal reform international projects on penal reform in 9 Arab countries. She's focusing on juvenile justice, prison reform, women in prison, the fight against death penalty, and arbitrary arrest and pre-trial detention. She's educated in Jordan and at the University of Essex, Nigel. Tagreed, we would like you to address the question of overcrowding and the human rights impact of overcrowding. Tagreed.
شكرا. صباح الخير. شكرا سيادة الرئيس، السادة الحضور. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أقول أننا إذا ما أردنا أن نتحدث عن مشكلة الاكتظاظ في السجون، علينا أولا أن نشخص ما أثر هذه المشكلة على مجتمع السجن.
Good morning. First and foremost, allow me to talk to you about prison overcrowding and the consequences of this, in particular for the rights of those persons deprived of their liberty. Prison overcrowding affects the ways in which people live in prison, the prison conditions. What is overcrowding? Well, overcrowding means that there are fewer resources for each prisoner, that there's less available for each inmate. It means that the services are streamlined, and that leads to other problems for different categories of detainees. And it means that the prison administration has to face up to many practical problems. We should also say that most prisons today are facing this problem of overcrowding. And this is relevant for my region that I'm talking about today, the region of the Middle East. We note that in this region, today we have more than 150% of prisoners in most of the prison establishment. What that means is that there is 50% overcrowding. It means that the region of the Middle East and North Africa is suffering greatly from overcrowding. You listened to Ms. Connors listing the different human rights violations related to overcrowding, so I shall focus on the right to health in my statement. Prison overcrowding leads to diseases, leads to epidemics, and it also leads to a lack of healthcare services provided to inmates. When we see prison overcrowding, we see that the inmates have less access to showers, to washing facilities. Of course, this leads to many different outbreaks of disease, including skin diseases. Secondly, to move on from the right to health, which is my first point, overcrowding also leads to problems with health, with food, with nutrition. In many countries, detainees have to count on their families from the outside to send them the food that they so desperately need. And then I would like to raise the issue of the right of workers in the prison and the right to security. We have seen that sometimes there's only one prison guard who is in charge of more than 200 detainees. That can lead to many problems. So overcrowding affects different categories of prisoners, it affects women in prison, and it affects the children which accompany their mother to places of detention. Children are faced with exploitation. They're not in the right environment for a healthy life. And overcrowding also affects as I said, those who work in the prisons. There is a relationship between this prison overcrowding and human rights violations, which is clear. We need to realize that the more we see prison overcrowding, the greater the deterioration in prison conditions is.